Now, the housing market's having a tough time, and it's getting worse if you've got invasive plants. Japanese knotweed don't just grow here, there and everywhere in your garden. It can actually damage the fabric of your property. Joining us now is Les Meikle from Wise Property Solutions. What's the right name of your company, Les?
It's Wise Property Care Limited.
Property Care Limited. And you've got a sort of Japanese knotweed specialist division.
We have.
How much of a problem is it in the west of Scotland, Les?
It surprised me to find that it's almost everywhere. We're based in Barrhead, and it's covering Barrhead. I live in Newton Mearns, and there's lots of it in Newton Mearns. Kilbarchan, all over the west coast. So it's a.
Is it just a problem for the west of Scotland?
It's throughout the UK. They reckon it's in at least every 6 square mile of landmass. So it's everywhere in the UK.
Now, is that what you've brought in? Or is
it
that...
is. This is the stem of the Japanese knotweed.
Oh, you'd knock someone out.
It's like bamboo.
It is, and you can see just how...
I thought it was just a wee weed that you would see in your garden, but this is...
That's your next door neighbour.
Look at that. That's mighty. Is it related to bamboo?
Oh, and it's hollow, is it?
Well, it looks very like it in sugarcane and so forth. And it's that size and thickness and the aggressive nature and how it grows that causes the damage. That is just 1 year's growth. That just came up this year from about early April to now.
It is solid.
And that dies down again and comes back like that in the following year. So you can imagine
how
the
deep
amount
are
of
the
damage
roots?
it can do. Well, your roots can go down at least 2 metres and spread about 3 metres to 4 metres on either side of the stem itself. So it's a particularly aggressive root system.
What's it doing here?
What's it doing here?
In the studio?
No, in Scotland.
Well, it was actually brought into the UK as an ornamental plant by the Victorians. So it was very popular, and its flowers and leaves were quite pretty. So it covered large gardens where there was barren areas that they wanted to cover.
Well, somebody that kind of winced as that passed from you over to me is our other guest, Tamsin Duff. You ran into problems with this invasive weed, didn't you?
We did, yes. We recently looked at a property which met all our needs. It ticked all our boxes, and we were really keen on it. But actually, when we went to try and get a mortgage, we actually approached 3 mortgage companies or banks who wouldn't even look at the survey reports, weren't interested in looking at where it was, how far away it was from the building. We were just knocked back.
So did you tell them there was knotweed in there?
Is it in the survey?
It was in the home report.
Right.
It was in the home report. When we went to view the house, we were told, the home report was really very, very good. There was only one little thing in it, and it was this little weed at the back of the garden. So we had a look at this little weed at the back of the garden, which looked quite small. But then we started going through the whole process of trying to get a mortgage and everything, and spoke to one of our friends who's in the building business, and he said, "Have you told them about the knotweed?" And we said, "No, we didn't really think it was an issue.
So you didn't know
it's only a little weed at the back of the garden." He said, "I think you better say to the mortgage companies." As soon as we said to them,
oh my grief,
it was a blank no. It was absolutely, they weren't interested at all.
So what does it do then to the building? I mean, is it take the water away?
Well, because it grows so aggressively, it will exploit tiny cracks or crevices in the brickwork and the foundations. So if it finds a small gap, you can imagine as that grows from a very small stem to the size it is now, it can really cause some serious damage to the brickwork and the foundations.
What if you were, if you were aggressive against it? I mean, could you not just kind of chop it down, level your garden, and put something, a really thick, these things.
Concrete.
Well, not even concrete, but one of these fabric things that you put over, before you put gravel down.
Yeah.
Would that not stop you? If there's no light getting through or water?
It's got a very aggressive root system as well, and it can survive for some time. So it really needs quite a stringent treatment regime over a considerable period of time to eradicate it.
And you've had success in that, Les?
Well, it's one of these things, we're still monitoring it. From people that we've learned from in the past, we believe a 2 to 3 year treatment regime will eradicate the weed, but you still have to monitor it for a couple of years after that just to make sure you actually have killed off the weed altogether.
And I don't know I remember reading in the briefs last night when they came through, but I mean there is legislation about what you do with the soil and the area that's infected with.
Yes, anything we remove is considered as contaminated waste, and we have to take it to a licensed landfill site. So you can't just take it up yourself and throw it over the hedge to somebody else's garden. It really has to be treated very seriously by professional companies.
And what if it's coming through from your next door neighbour's garden?
Again, again, that's one of the problems you have. If there are more than one owner involved, you have to get everybody involved to try and eradicate this holistically, if you like.
How far does it travel in time, if you know what I mean?
Well, that's actually growth above ground. It can grow about 1 metre in a month. That's how aggressive it is. 1 metre in a month, up to about 3 to 4 metres in one season. Then it will die down again and come back again the next season. So if you can imagine these sort of bamboo stems growing up to about 3 metres, 4 metres high,
Yeah, I saw
it's
it.
significant.
What would happen then if Tamsin had gone along to the house and the people that were selling it had chopped it down and sort of spread something out and they'd held the growth in abeyance and they didn't, and it didn't show up in the report?
Yes.
What would happen if she'd bought the house?
It would
and
just be
then
bad luck.
Crikey.
She would get caught with it in a year or two's time.
Because it's not just you, Tamsin. Presumably now the vendors are in a kind of they're in a sticky situation.
I don't know what's happened with it, but I've heard actually another friend very recently also had the same problem, was trying to buy a flat, and it's happened to them too. So I hadn't even heard of it until recently, and then that's within a couple of months. So I don't know if it's becoming more prevalent.
Well, it's become more noticeable as the chartered surveyors have been trained to identify it as a result of the lenders saying they're not happy lending on property with Japanese knotweed. So the more training that the chartered surveyors has, the more it's been recognised now. So it's probably been there, it just hasn't been identified before, and now it is, and it's been seen as a major problem.
And is it such a problem in other countries as well, Les? I mean, presumably where it came from.
In Japan, it has its own parasites that limit its growth. Over here, it's completely parasite-free.
Right.
It has no natural enemies in the UK, hence it grows unchecked as it does just now. But they are introducing an aphid-like creature from Japan to try and reduce its aggressive growth over here in the UK.
We don't want to tinker with the ecology.
We're being told
Leave the
here
aphids.
that it's that its sap burns you. So if you're trying to get rid of it,
Not so much Japanese knotweed. It's hogweed, such as that. The sap on your skin can give you abrasions and burn, but not Japanese.
But if you try and dig that out the garden yourself, you have to. How do you? I mean, you can't just put it in your brown bin or whatever colour of bin you've got, can you? You
it's
have
got to go to a licensed site.
A horrendous problem, isn't it?
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, it's massive. So
What kind of? I mean, you can't get sodium chlorate anymore, can you?
Well, the chemicals they now use for it are mostly glyphosate-based herbicides, and that's pretty effective against it, but it has to be a regular, ongoing treatment regime over a period of time. It's not just spray it once and it's gone. It's a several-year treatment, monitoring it all the time to make sure that it is in fact stopped growing.
So would you have to prove then, if you were to sell the house in a few years' time, would you have to prove that it's actually been eradicated? Or
Yes, well, the warranties that we offer is a treatment and monitoring warranty. So we treat it for as long as it takes to stop it growing, then we monitor it for another 2 or 3 years after that, so that we can prove photographically that over that period of time there's been no regrowth of this knotweed in that property.
Interesting stuff. Les, good to see you
So
again.
hang on a minute.
Oh,
Can I
no,
just
Cam's
ask a
not finished.
question? How much would it cost to get rid of this?
Well, an average house you're maybe looking at £45,000, and that's over about a 5-year period.
Right, and it would take that long to get rid of it?
You would expect it to stop growing within about 2 to 3 years, and then the 2 years after that you're monitoring it to make sure there is no further growth, and if there is, that you keep retreating it until you have a period of time where there is no noticeable regrowth of the Japanese knotweed.
Amazing.
It's horrible,
Isn't it?
isn't it?
I'm worried about having it in my fingers now. I'll stay out the garden.
Yeah.
Les, as I say, thanks very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Good
My
to see you.
pleasure.
But Tamsin, can I ask, did you get another house?
well, no, we're actually quite happy where we are, but this one was just a bit bigger.
This is why you didn't get
I
it
know,
then.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much
Thank
indeed
you.
for coming in. It's